Welcome back to part 2 of the book haul. Here we go. Hello, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Adrian, and today we're looking at doing the second part of my book unhaul. Because, as I was expecting, it's taking a while to get through all of these books. So, we got through the first crate, we're on to the second. Let's begin. The first few books I'm getting rid of are all in a series, and they are these six. Yeah, six. It's really questioning that for a second. 6 Warriors books from Aaron Hunter. In part because, I have a bunch of the others, like the first 2 series in the whole grouping. And then this one, The Power of the 3 arc, I guess. I don't have the 5th one. And then I just have one of these Omen of the Stars arc books. And I've had these for a long time. I read a lot of the Warriors books when I was much younger. I think they were some of the first books I bought myself off of half.com, which no longer exists. Yeah. Next we have 5 out of 6 of the parts of the serial editions of The Green Mile by Stephen King, where he initially released them each in a single part, I guess. He serially released them. And there's 6 parts. I only have 5. Beyond that, I have a complete edition of The Green Mile, so I don't need these, because I don't think they even cut anything or change anything, so getting rid of these should work out just fine. Next is another Stephen King hardback, which does not have a dust cover, is The Talisman by Stephen King. And Peter Straub. I'm going with Straub. So, don't know what this is about. Can't really look. But the main reason I'm getting rid of this is because I have a paperback version. I think a mass market paperback version. And really, I don't have space for a hardback edition of The Talisman that doesn't even have a dust jacket. So I was just like, I'll just get rid of it. Oh. And here's one that harkens back to the previous video, which is only a little bit ago for me, but probably several days for y'all, hence, same shirt. But anyways, it's The Ethics of Euthanasia, from a separate, older series where it's, at issue, apparently, where it'd be, different books looking at contemporary issues, I suppose. Next, we have Keith Taylor's Bard, which I did read, and was a disappointment. It was pretty okay fantasy, I guess. It's very episodic and doesn't really feel like there's much of a point beyond we're just kind of following this bard as he kind of goes from one place to another and has various misadventures, and they all kind of seemed a bit disjointed to me. There's also just the oddness of this is one of the first fantasy books where I've seen something where it's explicitly okay, yes, I see what people mean when they say that there's some interesting and sometimes a bit unsavory objectifications. No, all objectifications of women are unsavory. What am I talking about? I was gonna say something else, but then my brain mixed them together. Whatever. Basically, there's a point where it's talking about a horse's nose And it says it's as soft as a woman's breast. And I was like, was that necessary? But yeah, Bard, unhauling it. Next, we have some random romance books, I guess. It's The Forbidden Rose, and then Night Magic, which has various authors, and then The Forbidden Rose is written by Joanna Bourne. It's just 2 romance books. Neither of them very much interest me, even though this one technically has 4 stories. I looked at them and none of them seemed interesting. I'm not big on like these kinds of romance books, I guess. Not to say they're bad, just not for me. Next we have an interesting book that I think I got from a history teacher in high school, which is Portrait of America, Volume 1, which goes until 1877. And it's just like a bit of history of America, like just the Portrait of America. I'm not very interested in reading it, considering I've already taken a lot of history courses and stuff. Plus, I'd much rather find like a... Oh, when was this published? Because if I remember correctly, I was like, oh, this is pretty old. And it might be better to get like a more up-to-date book. Just because like history is ever-changing. Because new discoveries are made and so forth. As well as there being like the recognition that sometimes certain groups were purposefully left out, and then you find records that were not destroyed and be like, oh, they did exist, or whatever. It's just rambling now. Next, we have a book from, I guess it was probably a series of books about the way people live, but this one is Life Among the Pirates by Stuart A. Callan. And you know, I did look through this a bit. It was a bit disappointing, especially because there's like not as much detail on certain aspects of pirate life, and I'm like, but there's stuff that we know happened. But at the same time, afterwards I was like, wait, this is probably oriented towards kids, so I won't complain. Because some of the more unsavory aspects being left out, I was like, oh yeah, that would make sense, I guess, so I won't hold it against it. Still not invested in keeping it, though. Next we have this, Culture Wars, from Opposing Viewpoints, or the Opposing Viewpoint series. Very old book. Yeah, this is before 2000 is when this was published, so first of all, it's out of date, so I think I might just... This one is one that I might just throw away because it's out of date, so a lot of the arguments are no longer in date. Although at the same time, there are a lot of arguments that haven't changed. It's just they kind of look a bit different. Does that make sense, you know? Anyways, unhauling that. Next, we have Dan Brown's Digital Fortress. This is a book that I ended up getting rid of because I read the ending instead of reading the whole book. And man, am I glad I freaking did that. Because, like, the thing is, right, is at the point where I was, like, deciding whether I wanted to keep this or if it, like, you know, sparked joy, I was like, I don't know. In the past, when I was younger, liked some of the, like, Robert Langdon, Dan Brown books. So I was like, I still have them too, so those I also am like, I'm going to read like 1 or 2 and then decide if I want to keep them. But that's neither here nor there right now. Anyways, I decided, I was like, well, let me just read the beginning, like the first few pages or so. And then I was like flipping through to see, like, because I was thinking about it, and I saw this like code, because this follows like some cryptographers, and like a lot of it's doing this. And there's a point where I was like, oh hey, it says what was it? Right, I saw I just saw the word prime going straight down, and I was like, oh, so it's like prime difference. And this was like the key clue in the end, where they're like, the everything will go wrong if we don't get this code in right. And they try like a phrase from a ring on this guy's finger that was like the one who had the password, and that like did all the encryption and stuff. Anyways, they entered it from the ring, because like, I think from my understanding that he was like going like this, and the ring was on one of his fingers. So they went based off of that. But then it turns out they need a numeral, a number, instead of like an actual like phrase. So they're trying to figure out a number, and they eventually find some stuff in the code that's a clue. And at first I was like, obviously there's some like cryptography things where it's like you need to recognize like stuff. But anyways, they have like 7 minutes left, right? And they put it in the system where at the point where I saw it and was like, oh, it says prime because it's a Caesar square, which means each column, you read it like top to bottom and you go, and that's how you read it, because that's how Caesar supposedly would like encrypt his letters and send them to people. So I was able to like, with this, where like in world they have 7 minutes, right? And I was able to read this, so it says prime difference between elements responsible for Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Right? So I already was like, oh, okay, I know what to do. I totally know. They had to retype it so it was all like properly formatted like in a book. And that took them a minute, so they had 6 minutes. And then they needed to have spaces put in, apparently. So then, like, by the time they're, like, finally, like, read the clue, they have 5 minutes left. They took 2 minutes in the time it took me to actually read the clue and already kind of know what the clue means. And then they get that it's, like, as it says, the prime difference between elements responsible for Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And then they start going, like, Pearl Harbor, Hirohito's refusal, and then they're like, no, we need a number, remember? It's mathematics, not history. And then they're like thinking about like payload, stuff like that. And then and then it takes them like so long. Oh, bear in mind, okay, before I continue, the setup is that one of the people here has like genius level IQ, right? So I would expect them to like get it really fast. Right? And it's like the silliest freaking thing, because in the time it took me 2 minutes real world to figure out exactly what we're looking for. And it takes them up until like 3 seconds left to finally get the answer. And even then, it's because they like part of it's with the hand where they recognize what the hand was signifying. But yeah, they take time to figure out that elements does not like mean like factors. It means, you know, like chemical elements. It takes them a while to figure that out. And then it takes them even longer beyond that once they look up like some of the elements in the, you know, atomic bombs, because that's what Hiroshima and Nagasaki are. So you would expect the difference between the uranium and maybe plutonium, but if I remember correctly, because I was thinking at the time, I was like, if I remember correctly, though, there wasn't actually plutonium. They used 2 different uranium isotopes. And it takes them a while to get that it's prime as in prime number, and then difference as in subtract. And then they're still, like, stuck on it. So by the time I see them, like, get to, like, this document where they see the things, and it's U-235 and U-238, at that point I was like, oh, so the code is 3. Right? And they still had 3 minutes left, bear in mind. So they're just like sitting there and they're like, what is it? We don't know. And then eventually they're like looking at this guy, like this freeze frame of this guy with his fingers, and they're like, it's 3. And I was so unimpressed with the clue, with the supposed like genius level IQ people's performance. Not only that, this is cryptographers, so they should be knowing their math pretty well, even if that's not entirely necessary for some of the cryptography. I would expect them to be able to recognize basic math. Like, it's a basic math problem is what they were presented with without the numbers provided. And I was like, ah! So, like, I am so glad I read the ending instead of reading the whole book just to get to that, because that is just a terrible ending. Anyways, next we have John Grisham's The Street Lawyer, which is just like another lawyer thriller that it's John Grisham. I'm not that invested. I have, like, I think one of his books that I'm like, I'll read it, because this one seems interesting, but, like, a lot of them just seem to have, like, similar kind of descriptions, so I'm just like, they kind of sound like they might be a lot of, like, similar books with different characters or stuff like that. But yeah, we're unhauling that. Next is The Shark Callers by Eric Campbell. I have no idea what this is about. I think it's where there's a volcano in Papua New Guinea that is about to blow, and so there's people leaving, while on another island, this other character is, like, beginning his apprenticeship as a shark caller. And then the thing is eventually it basically lands with 2 young men at the sea in shark-infested waters on their own journeys. I don't need more shark fuel for my nightmares, because I'm already keeping Jaws and his other shark book by Paul Bletchley. Is that his name? I don't remember the name of the author, but yeah, I have the books. So I don't need any more shark books. Next is A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. I'm just unhauling this because I have a separate edition that I like more. Even though, like, I adore, actually. Not just love, I adore this novella. Like, I have basically decided to make it a tradition where every Christmas I read it, because I can read it in one sitting and stuff like that. So yeah. Next is another second edition that I'm just like, I'll get rid of, is The Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. I did read Pride and Prejudice for the first time in this edition, but I got a second edition that is much better because it doesn't have as, like, compacted and tiny text as this edition, so it was a much more, like, easy read on the eyes. And I annotated that version, and I don't have a whole lot of attachment to this, so yeah, unhauling it. Next we have a very old Penguin books, The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. It's just containing some of his, Sherlock's most famous cases. I don't really feel like keeping it because I have the two volumes of the complete Sherlock Holmes, so I don't need this edition. Plus, it's also got like the tiny text, so deal with that. Next, we have Barbara Wood's The Prophetess, which is just like a thriller that I'm not that interested in. Even though, like, this is one of those ones where I think there's like some different kinds of thrillers. For example, there's like spies where it's like war or like covert ops to like kind of prevent battles, stuff like that. There's like law related thrillers where it's kind of like solving crimes and stuff. And then there's like religious based thrillers. And when I say that, I mean like where, like, for example, this one where there's like these scrolls that are discovered that could completely alter religion as the Christians know it. Because Dan Brown does that too, is like why I'm thinking of it. But yeah, so it's like the seventh scroll holds the key to Armageddon or something like that. Yeah, that's one that I'm not that interested in, and it didn't really do much. And then we have Sandstorm by James Rowlands, which is one that I may or may not keep because I kept a different James Rowlands because I was curious enough. So if I like that one, I might actually keep this. But that depends on when I get to the other book and when, if this is still here. Otherwise, I'm not gonna worry about it. So, yeah. Don't know what this is about. There's an antiques collection that gets exploded, I guess, in London that sets off alarms in clandestine organizations around the world. Interesting. And then there's just a bunch of people who search for answers and end up in a world they never dreamed existed, a lost city buried beneath the Arabian desert. And then it goes from there where they're solving stuff. Yeah. Next, we have some James Patterson coming up, so be prepared. So we have James Patterson and Peter de Jonges? I don't know. But it's The Beach House. I have no idea what it's about. It's one of those law school people, like law thrillers, like I was saying. So yeah, there's James Patterson, which, like I already said, James Patterson, I haven't been of his adult works, I haven't found any that I like or that resonate with me per se. It's not like they're ones that I'm like, these are terrible. They're just, to me. So, yeah, I'm just getting rid of a lot of, like, most of the James Patterson books that I had that didn't capture my attention with their description, because a lot of them are very similar. So we have, I didn't say Step on a Crack, which has Michael Ledwidge as a co-author. Then there's Kill Me If You Can with Marshall Karp. Is there any other? I don't... Oh, okay. That was all of James Patterson. I, for some reason, thought there might have been more. Okay. Next, we have The Fallen by T. Jefferson Parker, which is one that I got rid of because just the beginning kind of struck me as, like, really absurd, because it's basically where this police officer gets thrown out of a really high-story building window and lands and then lives. And so, because of that, he gets promoted. Even though he ran... Like, because the thing is, right, is he's thrown from this window and it's in a burning building. So he ran into a burning building and then he got thrown out and didn't die. And while, yes, he may have, like, rescued a woman in doing so, but at the same time, like, that's not the reason it's implied he gets promoted. But because he survived a fall of such heights, like, which is weird to me. Like, why would a police officer... No, it wasn't even a police officer. I think it's a detective. Yeah, so it says the traumatic incident left Robbie with a fast-track career in the San Diego PD's homicide division. And he gets synesthesia, apparently, where he sees people's emotions in their words or whatever. So he's able to tell if someone's lying, you know, stuff like that. Which I'm not going to say how accurate that is because I'm not an expert on that sort of thing. But even then, it's just such a bizarre, like, I was like, I can't buy that. So I'm unhauling it. Next, there's The Testament by Eric Van Lustbader, which is one of those religious thrillers I had been talking about earlier. So yeah, that's another one that I was like, I'm not interested, so we'll just unhaul it. We're making some good progress here. Next, we have this interesting edition of Charles Dickens' Great Expectations, which this was a gift, like, so yeah, it's a weird edition because, like, it's just the cover. It feels like a self-published book, which I have some, but it's not nearly as, like, good quality because those have, like, descriptions on the back or synopsi. Anyways, beyond that, it's also, like, large, much smaller than the actual book, which, do I have it here? Yes, it's this one. Which, ignore this pile, I have them weighing this because this book fell and kind of got a bit bent, so I'm trying to flatten it up. Not bent, it kind of like got a bit wavy, so I'm trying to flatten out with some of these books. But anyways, it's like half the thickness of the other edition I have. I mean, it's taller, sure. Yeah, and this is what it looks like on the inside, and I was like, yeah, no, I don't want this. Like, I at first thought it would be nice as like a tabletop book or something like that, but then I was like, do I really want to keep it for that though? Because it would just be sitting there. And then I was like, yeah, no, I'm gonna unhaul it because it's not even something that I'm like, ooh, have it as a decoration. It was just something that I was like, do I want to get rid of? Anyways, next we have a book that's just Cultures of the World, Egypt. I looked through it, got some stuff, and then otherwise I'm just not interested, I guess. It doesn't... A lot of this is just stuff where I picked it up and I was like, it doesn't really spark joy or make me go like, ooh, go on then, read it. Next we have this book, American Political Scandals, Past and Present, which is from 1992. So it's maybe a bit out of date. Let's just put it at that. Next we have this book, The Great Conquerors, from the History Makers series. This is one that I've gone back and forth on whether I want to keep it, and that's this like impact biography of Mohandas Gandhi, or I think there's also like some people who say it's Mahatma Gandhi, unless I'm misremembering, but Gandhi. And yeah, it's just that like I'd rather get like a more like expressive biography, I guess, because like I have some biographies, like for example Oscar Wilde's biography, that it's like if you were to do an impact, I guess it would be narrowed down, so I want more, if that makes sense, because I feel like this isn't enough, so it'll just be like a bit more of like some summarizing and stuff, and I'd rather get more, so I was like, I'll unhaul it. And next we have a different Stephen King, Rose Madder. Don't know what it's about. This is also one that I have a paperback copy that doesn't take up as much space, so I was like, I'll just say goodbye to this. Plus, it doesn't have a dust jacket either. Next, we have Webster's Collegiate Thesaurus, which I was like, if I need a thesaurus, I'll just use my phone, because this is taking up space, and I don't even like use it at all. Like, my go-to when I'm writing is just, or when I'm writing something and trying to think of a separate word, but I'm like, it's a synonym to this word, but I don't remember the actual word. I just Google it. So I'm just unhauling this. Next we have the original screenplays of Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, and the Crimes of Grindelwald by J.K. Rowling. Honestly, like, I like the Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them movie. Crimes of Grindelwald was, and I'm not really that invested in watching any more of the series, so there's that. Plus, as I said, I'm mainly attached to the main series, and with, as I mentioned before, the author and some stuff there, I was like, you know what? I like the covers are pretty, but I have a friend who I know her mother loves Harry Potter stuff, so I was like, I'll give these to her because, yeah, she's established her feelings, I think. I don't know. We'll see. I just don't want to hold on to them, and yeah. Which includes this, Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. Also by J.K. Rowling and John Tiffany and Jack Thorne. Oh wait, right. Because this is the special rehearsal edition script, but it's based on an original new story by J.K. Rowling, except the play is by Jack Thorne. Which may explain some things, but at the same time, we've seen that J.K. Rowling kind of has seemed to struggle a bit with screenwriting or like script writing, maybe. So who knows? But this was not a good book. I mean, it gave us Scorpius, not Scorpio. So I appreciate that, but beyond that, it's a bit, So I was just like, I'll just pass on it, because if I'm picking up and being like, obviously it doesn't spark joy, which is a book that you're supposed to not hold on to. Next we have another book of poems. I guess I can't say another because the first one was in the first part. But yeah, this is Pierced by a Ray of Sun, Poems About the Times We Feel Alone. And it's basically the same as that other poetry book where I looked through it, didn't see any poems I was really like, ooh. And it was meh. So I'm unhauling it. Hello, just coming in here real rude. Anyways, hello. Ignore the notification sounds. I have 2 more books to add because I ended up deciding to unhaul them. You'll see why for one in particular. The second, it's just because I'm not attached to it enough. It's not like it's a bad book or anything. It's just that. So the first one I'm getting rid of is The Barcode Prophecy. I'm unhauling that. The video you see next should probably, like, give you a good reason why. Or something like that. I don't know. Pardon, like, also me just kind of filming like this because
My goodness, I literally am like, we're leaving today to go to my college, so I just wanted to get across these before leaving so I don't have to worry about them and talk about them at another point. Also, the other one is Sideways Stories from Wayside School by Louis Sachar. Nothing particularly bad about it, but yeah. So instead of it being 99 books, it's 101 books, like the amount of Dalmatians. And this video, instead of having 45, will have 47 with these two added. Have a lovely day.
Okay. Second to last, we have this book, which doesn't have a dust jacket, nor the title on the front like the other Stephen King's. But this is The Elements of Lettering, which is an interesting book to like look at and stuff, because there's like different things in that. But honestly, I was like, I don't think I am invested enough in like learning the elements of lettering to actually take the time to read this book or want to keep it, so I'm unhauling it. And finally, the last book I am unhauling, at least for this unhaul video, is Sign Language Talk by Lauren Green and Eva Barash Dicker. Mainly because I haven't used it at all. It doesn't really spark for me. Plus, I have a dictionary of ASL to a certain extent already. Plus, I know some American Sign Language, and I have wanted to like restart practicing it and stuff. But the thing is I can just find YouTube videos or stuff like that that would be much better than trying to figure it out from like images like these. So yeah, I'm unhauling. And that's everything. Unhauled, or I'm going to unhaul. Just gotta figure out what to do with some of them. The rest are going to be donated, and then some are going to friends. Thank you for joining me on this long journey of going through all the books I'm going to unhaul. It's been a bit, because I think total I've got almost 2 hours of footage. So it's a good thing I'm splitting the videos into 2 parts. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. Do all those YouTube things if you want to. I wish you well on your way. Have a lovely day. Ciao.